Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Cornelius. I'm your host, Cornelius Patrick O'Sullivan, and since the last episode has occurred, it has been a week for you to listen to it, but it has actually only been, how many minutes? Maybe 10 or 15
10 minutes, maybe. Yeah.
10 minutes for us. We've had a toilet break, we've had a smoke break. Dan is having some Mawows. Dan's the producer of this podcast. Shout out to the Only Funny German, brilliant comedian. Just hit 10k on Instagram. Follow him. And he's in the Coca Club every week as well. And myself and Mike were just reminiscing there before we got going, just about the first part of the podcast, which is your early life in Newmarket, Mike.
Yes.
And before we move on to the second part, is there anything you missed out on, or anything you wanted to talk about from those days that you felt I didn't think of a question, or anything you want to talk about?
No, we were just talking about how violent it was growing up. It was really gang related around towns and stuff, and we hated our next door neighbour, but we hated the next street over, and we hated the next town beyond that, and it grew and grew.
Yeah.
In every facet of life.
Yeah.
So it was just dog eat dog world, and it was you were going out for the dance or the disco on Saturday night, but you always knew there was going to be a scrap somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
And it was life. It was just the way life was.
And was that the same in was that the same all over? Do you think that was the same in Mallow or Mitchellstown?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because no matter where we ended up, and maybe it was us that were instigating it, but no matter where we ended up, there was always
trouble.
There was always trouble, and there was always an enemy to be had.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were some knockdown dragouts. I mean, we used to go to Castle Island, a place called Woody's.
Yeah. Which
was again just a nightclub type thing on a Saturday night. And that was when we were in the biker stage as well. We had motorcycles.
You were how old were you at this stage?
I'm probably in 18, 19, 17 to 20, I'd say, somewhere in that range.
So you're 17, 20 years old. You're fucking young, dumb, and full of cum. On your motorcycle, no helmet, I presume.
No, we did have helmets.
You had helmets.
Yeah.
But would you be having a few pints?
Absolutely.
Just drinking and driving on the motorcycles fast?
Up sidewalks, up the footpaths, though, you name it, wherever we could get by.
I'm starting to see the common denominator here now in the fighting, all right? Like your biker hooligans, like coming into town, drinking.
We were going to a rally one time, a bike rally back in Kerry somewhere. And we got kind of held up in Tralee, or one of these bigger towns. And there was too much traffic, and so all of us, about 7 or 8 of us on bikes, would go up the sidewalk, and just no care in the world for pedestrians or nothing, just flying down the street and jumping back on the street between cars when you could get an opening. But then when it closed up again, you were back on the sidewalk, back on the footpath.
Assholes.
Yes, and I remember we got chased out. I think it was an off-duty cop or guard who was parked there and saw us, chased us down about 5 miles out of town and got out of his car and started beating on one of the guys. We'd pulled over on the bikes a little bit to figure out who this asshole was behind us, but he was the law. And we had just broken a bunch of rules.
And that was just a regular Saturday night.
And that was just a regular day trip, just out for a Sunday drive.
You probably couldn't find anyone to fight, so you said, fuck this, let's try and knock someone over.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right, okay. So they were wild times.
Wild times, and I'll never forget, we got to that rally, and we were the nomads at that time. Newmarket had their own, we had our own little...
So you had a biker gang name?
A biker, yeah, nomads.
How many were in the fucking gang?
We probably had about I'd say 8 in Newmarket, but we became part of the Blackwater Motorcycle Club, which was out of Mallow, and they had about 10. So all in all, with the Blackwater Motorcycle Club, we were 20 or so bikes, I'd say.
Fucking intimidate, and like you weren't were you the aggressive crew coming in with Mallow? Who was in the Mallow group? Do I know anyone in the Mallow group?
Frank Lenihan, one of the guys I'm meeting tomorrow, and
yeah.
There was a guy called Towser.
Yeah.
Mickey Cotter was one of them.
Yeah.
And we had our denim jackets with Parazone in the back with our nicknames in the black.
So we had Caesar.
Caesar was on there, yeah, and we all had the pins, with the motorcycle pins.
The North Cork motorcycle. I just think I never fucking knew this is fucking mad. Like
Blackwater Motorcycle Club.
Blackwater. What's like you're the Sons of Anarchy, the original Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah,
the Sons of Duhala.
We were posers, really. We weren't.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
kind of a motorbike did you have?
Oh, for fuck's sake, the little wimpy thing.
A Honda 50.
No, it was a bit better than the Honda. My first one was a Suzuki 125. 125
Oh,
is
yeah.
they're trail bikes. They were street legal, but you could also jump them on the dirt or
Yeah.
go to the quarries and do
You didn't give a
stunts.
shit.
On,
It
stunts
didn't matter
on
what you had, really. A motor, like, once you were... I'd say it was a good buzz, though, rolling into town with 20 dudes with your
Oh,
name
was it?
patched on and the wind in your hair and 7 or 8 pints on board.
Yeah, and the rallies were something else. You'd spend all day trying to get to the rallies, and it was a whole weekend. You'd go camping on the bike, so there'd be a big field where everybody camps, and then you're into town. There's only 2 pubs in town, but they're chock-a-block with bikers.
Fucking brilliant.
And
And would you fight with other biker gangs?
yeah, there'd be a few scraps. Actually, they were actually one of the more civil times we had when all the bikers got together.
Yeah.
We didn't really,
You were kind of the same kin, like.
yeah, we were
Yeah.
brethren.
Yeah.
But there was always accidents because I remember one time Finbar was doing wheelies. He had the Suzuki 185 and he was mad for a wheelies.
Finbar, for context, is our uncle, Michael's brother.
And he was doing a wheelie through town and bashed into a car. And the ambulance had to come and take him into the Tralee Hospital from where we were and the place was a little village, probably 10 miles outside. I can't remember the name of it. It was called a Desmond Motorcycle Rally, but I don't think it was Valley Desmond. There wasn't anything like that. But anyway, on the way, somebody came in and said, "All right, who's the leader of the Nomads?" You know, we didn't have a really designated leader. But I put my hand up for Caesar.
Caesar, of course. It had to be fucking Caesar.
And we had the Prez there as well.
I remembered the Prez, yeah.
And he was the president because he became the president of the U Club in the market. And he was the biggest cowboy, the biggest gambine you ever met in your life.
The Prez.
He kicked the shit out of you. But anyway, on the way in to see Finbar in the hospital, we all drove in. We all jumped on our bikes out of the pub after 10 pints. Off into Tralee, and Jacko was another one of our guys. And Jacko, on the way through anyway, missed a bend and ended up in the field, and another ambulance had to come and get him.
On the way in to meet
On the
Finbar
way
in the ambulance.
Yeah.
You said you'd stop off and have 10 pints, then go to meet Finbar, and then on the way to meet him, another fella goes...
One the other guy jumps the ditch in the bike and had to have an ambulance come and get him.
It's like the dominoes. Yeah, so that wild times.
And that's just a snippet of one night at one of these, which there was one every weekend all summer long.
Yeah.
And you different parts of the country, you know, and you just meet
I'd
up.
say it was enjoyable times.
Absolutely the best of times.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have any girlfriends?
I did. I had one in every port.
Well, did you have one in every port? So you didn't leave any girlfriend behind, like, after you went to America?
Well,
Or did you?
I don't know if you probably don't remember. Oh, no, sure, look, I was
Sure I
engaged to one girl
Fuck off.
before I left. Yeah, and I was still engaged to her when I
You're still engaged to her?
I
Like,
just- oh, no.
does she know you're married?
She does, yeah. She does. I'm sure she does, but I haven't seen her since I'm over 40 years.
Yeah. I didn't know that, no.
Kentorp girl.
Yeah. And did you have to break that off then? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Okay. Well,
It was kind of an on and off thing anyway. We were back and forth quite a bit.
yeah. Yeah. Well, moving to a different continent, we'll fucking kind of sort that out, do you know? So we're gonna pick up where we left in the last podcast, Mike. And
Right, that was the pint at Dirty Nelly's before I got on
You
the
were-
jet plane.
you were on the pint. You had the pint with your dad and your buddy.
And then I lived that song that is, when I landed at Kennedy and a big yellow taxi carried me and my bags through the streets and the rain. You know that one?
I do.
And that's exactly what happened.
Is it?
It was raining when we arrived, and the big yellow taxi took us to the Bronx. The very first night.
What had you lined up?
Nothing.
1 second. You had nothing at all lined up.
No, Derry had a name of a distant relative. And I had a book with a couple of names and addresses of John's friends now that had moved out. The Bird
Yeah.
was one of them. But nobody knew we were coming, and we didn't give 'em- nobody got heads up on it.
But there was no internet, you see, and there was no cell phones
No.
or mobile phones, and it was landlines, and it was expensive to make phone calls.
Yeah.
So you couldn't, like, organising stuff was...
Yeah, and
was
Derry
difficult.
got a hold of this one distant relation who lived in the Bronx, and he just told us to get the cab out to a certain corner, which was Broadway and 176th Street or something, up at high numbers anyway. And he picked us up at the corner, but all he did was took us to a local motel, which was one of the scariest things I've ever seen, because you're in the Bronx.
Oh,
And you know, I've heard about the horror stories of Bronx, and
like, what was that like? You've landed. You're now. You see, you're talking about being a biker gang, fucking lording it around North Cork with your Mickey slapping off your knees, you know, and everyone afraid of you. And suddenly, you're fucking landed into the Bronx, where you know it's not fist fights, it's guns, it's fucking crime.
yeah, well,
you know, it's.
I mean, we didn't, but you did. I remember going into the motel room and taking the bag. We only had one bag each, everything we had in our possession that we were going to have to carry us 6 months or freaking 6 weeks or 6 days or 6 hours, we didn't know. And I remember all these guys just leaning over the second floor railing, you know, and it was hot and humid in New York at that time of the year. It was in August, and you just felt like eyeballs were on you, and they were eyeballing the suitcase probably, and you know.
Yeah.
So we didn't sleep too much the first night. We kind of one eye on the door and one eye on the bed. And the next day I looked up an address of, it was a girl actually, her sister. I used to date her sister, but they had an apartment in New York, down in Washington Square Park, which is right down in Greenwich Village, the heart of Greenwich Village. And so we took a bus and a subway, and we got ourselves close enough, and then we walked, and I found the building, apartment building, walked in and sat in the lobby all day till I recognized her coming home from work or whatever.
Go away.
And she walked in, I recognized her, and she goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, we're actually looking for a place to crash." And she put us up for 3 weeks
Wow.
and gave us enough. That was enough time to get the bearings.
Get a job.
And try and
get
get
a
a job.
place.
And I didn't get it. Jerry got a job in New York. I didn't. They tried to get me a job, because once we got settled and stayed in her apartment, we kind of got integrated into the Irish community a little bit. Then without the Bronx at Gaelic Park.
Yeah.
And I played hurling for Cork in Gaelic Park.
You played hurling for Cork in Gaelic Park.
Gaelic Park in New York.
Well, now, Michael, if I had known that you played hurling for Cork, I would have omitted the Gaelic Park part. Right?
Yeah.
And I would have been like, my uncle has played hurling for Cork. How dare you suggest that I'm shit? I'd have used that to try and get into the Harty panel.
And if I remember right, I think it was Waterford we beat.
And where
But
did
it
you
was
play?
hurling. I was a half-back,
Half-back. Jesus.
left half-back.
Did you wear the red jersey? Had you do?
Oh yeah, we had jerseys. They had sponsored jerseys, the whole lot out there. But pretty much every county has a representation in New York, and Gaelic Park is the Crow Park of.
Yeah. You know, they won there recently in the championship.
I did. I was listening to that on the radio when it was going on.
Yeah. And then they came up, I think, was it Leitrim beat them then? Or no, they beat Leitrim, was it? And then maybe Sligo beat them then in the next round. But they were, the fact that they won. And they had a couple of homegrown players that were born and bred in America.
Right.
Which is very exciting for the GA, like, you know, that's happening. But so you played in Gaelic Park. You
I
played
did.
hurling in Gaelic Park.
Hurling, yeah.
And you represented the county. So you're in a motorbike gang. You're like, now you're over in the States and you're playing wing back for Cork. Like, this is, you know, if you're writing this out, you know, these are dreams that a lot of kids would have, like.
Right.
So where did you go? You couldn't get work in New York?
Well, I actually, when you got integrated into the Irish community, everybody was figuring you were there to get work, right? So they were trying to find you, and there was a couple of your dad's friends who knew I was a garage man. So they got one of them got me a job in a kind of a service station.
Yeah.
Where it's more or less just a person. There's only one bay in there, but you change oil or something, or simple stuff, you know. So I ended up accepting that job, but where we stayed and where I had to go to work, it was out in Queens or someplace way out there. It was I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning in order to get there by 9.
Oh, Jesus.
And then in the evening, because I remember the first day I was there one day, and it was about 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening. I said, the other guy said, "When did we quit around here?" He said, "When the last car leaves, that's when the day is over."
Oh.
I said, "Fuck this."
Yeah.
So I only did one day. I never went back there.
Yeah.
Never went back to get paid for the day either.
Yeah.
And I think I fucked up a couple of jobs.
Yeah. Were you wild enough, so, Mike? Were you kind of free-spirited kind of a character?
Yeah,
like?
and then I moved to Boston. I decided I had enough with New York.
Did you just go by yourself to Boston?
I did.
And did you like how did that go? Do you just go, I'm going to bring my bag there now, I'm going to head off to Boston and wait in the lobby for some other person that I know?
Pretty much. Well, Billy Scanlon lived in Boston,
Oh,
and I had his address.
yeah. Was he on the run at the time?
No, he wasn't.
Was he on the run at one time? There was one fella that she had to drive to the airport late at night. Okay. Go on.
That's behind the curtains. Just to keep that behind the curtain.
Go on. So you went to Billy Scanlon in Boston.
Yeah, and he was staying in a kind of an apartment over a house. You know, it was actually more like an attic. And Billy,
Nan Frank
so
vibe.
Billy opened the door anyway, and off we went. But he kicked me the next morning. He goes, "Hey, Mike, come on, I got you a job." I'm going, "Fuck's sake, I just got here, Billy. I don't want a job yet. Let me have a day or two to just figure out what I'm doing." But I went out and started working for this guy called O'Brien, who was Irish construction company, O'Brien Construction.
Yeah.
They used to do blacktop with tarmac head and driveways and parking lots and stuff.
Okay.
And so I started doing that for him, and it was daily paid and stuff. So it was
That's handy.
it was handy. And then I met Frank, who was in the bike and backwater motorcycle club over here, and I knew him. But I didn't know he was in the States, and he didn't know I was in the States.
So you just met.
And I met him in
randomly.
an Irish bar because he had dropped his wallet, and the wallet got handed in over the bar, and the barman was calling out his name, Franklin. And I was going, "Geez, that name rings a bell." And I said, "It's Frank." And then I saw him hand the wallet back to some guy, and geez, that looks like Frank. But Frank now had grown a beard, so I was a little unsure. But after staring at him for a while, I'm sure made him feel uncomfortable. It was Frank. And then Frank came to work with me at O'Brien. And then the winter set in, because this now would have been November. It gets really cold in Boston, really cold.
Yeah. Lots of snow and shit.
Ice, slipping on the same patch of ice every day you walk out the door. And so Frank and myself put a plan together. We were going to California. The sand, the surf, and the girls, right? Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong.
So
What went wrong?
we never got to California. But we signed up with this company called Drive Away, which, if you have a driver's license, you can, there's people that want cars moved across the country. So you sign up and you get called. And we got called by a car going to Dallas.
Right.
And we looked at each other. It's about halfway to California. Let's take it.
Yeah.
And so we got a 79 Monte Carlo, beautiful car. And it was a granddad that was giving it as a graduation gift to his grandson in Texas. But it was mint condition, a beautiful car. A yellow one with a black vinyl top on it.
Automatic?
And we picked it up in Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island. And we drove from Rhode Island to Dallas. And we got 5 days to bring the car down.
And did you get paid for that then? Did they pay, or was
No,
it just...
you just get to drive the car across the country. And we took 5 days. We stopped in Chicago. We came across the north side because Frank knew a couple of friends that were going to college in Valparaiso, Indiana, which is not far outside Chicago. And we stayed there. We got snowed in there actually for a couple of days. So we burnt all the free time we had up there, and we burnt it on other stuff, They were college kids, so they were well in tuned.
You were smoking a bit of the wacky backy?
Fuck's sake, it was a cloud for 4 days.
A hazy cloud of happiness.
And then we got on the road again once the storm lit up.
Yeah.
And we got to Texas a couple of days later. Massive drive, though. Great road. The American road trip, there's something to be said about it.
Like Boston to me is very Irish. You see it on television.
Oh, it is.
It's cold, it's wet. It's almost like Ireland, like in a city type.
Right.
Like Texas, and I've been to Texas out to you twice in my life. It is so fucking different. Like, did you instantly fall in love with it? Was it, or did it take a while to grow on you, or were you like, because it is so, I even remember when I went out to you, first of all, everything is so much bigger in Texas. I know, like, there's a saying about that, but like,
Right.
like even the flags. Do you remember we'd be driving in the freeway, and you'd have a normal flag, but their flags are fucking huge.
Oh, they'd be 10 by 20.
And I'd be like, what? Oh, who owns this? And it would be like just a small grocery store.
Or a car dealership or a car lot or something.
Yeah, and like huge fucking flags. Like, so, like, what was your... Well, how did you feel when you landed there?
Well,
What,
I mean...
what was your next plan anyway, as well? Sorry, two questions.
There was really no next plan. It was just take one day at a time and try and get to California was the plan.
Mm.
But, it got to Texas and I think we met up with a couple other lads from Mallow here in Texas, John and Kevin.
The biker... They weren't in the biker gang. as well.
No. I didn't know these guys at all. Frank knew them.
I know John.
But again...
And Kevin. I know Kevin as well.
Again, there was a 3-week lapse of, the cloud of smoke and bit of up and smoke going on and all that.
Right.
And we woke up 3 weeks later and Frank and I said we had $500 left between us. And we said, that's not going to get us to California. We need to get a job.
Right.
So we decided, we're in Texas, we need a car because the public transport is non-existent. You really need a car if you're going to do anything down there.
Yeah.
So we went into one of these cowboy car lots and $500 slapped down and got a 72 Ford LTD, a boat of a car. Huge thing. You could lay across the back seat and sleep comfortably.
Go away.
$500. And we figured out pretty soon why it was 500. The drive shaft fell out of it 2 miles down the road. And Frank was a bit of a mechanic anyway, and I grew up in the car dealership, so we
Figured it out.
went to a junkyard and got a second-hand one and we put it back together ourselves. And we put the word out at the bars we were in. We were looking for a job, anything, painting, construction, doing whatever,
Yeah.
to make a few bucks. And we ended up getting a job with Love's Construction, which is where I met Debbie. That's where Debbie was the secretary at that company.
You dog.
But we got the job painting their warehouse, and then we kind of merged in with them in their regular construction efforts, which was they were doing a lot of remodels for a KinderCare, which is a preschool type place, kindergarten type.
Yeah.
But they were franchised. They had loads of them around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we were remodeling all of them.
So you're working there, and Debbie's working there, and Debbie is, for those of you who do not know, your wife.
Yes.
Love of your
and
life.
she was the one who was handing the paycheck. You had to go get your paycheck from her every week at the office. So that was a big day. There was an extra 10 minutes spent in the shower that morning. And an extra glob of hair gel and an extra spray cologne. Because today might be the day she might talk to me.
Yeah. And like, how long? So you were collecting your? That's kind of romantic. So you're collecting your check at the end of the week and all week from Debbie.
Yeah.
She's giving you a check. Do you like?
And the highlight of the week was going in to see Debbie and get the paycheck and maybe get a couple of words in.
And get a few words in. And how did that progress?
Well, the guy we worked for, Jim, Mary, his wife was Debbie's aunt.
Okay.
So her first husband was her brother, but he got killed. He got killed in a motorcycle accident. Oddly enough, got hit by a train.
Jesus.
But that was long before I came on the scene. But anyways, we just kind of, we just kind of hung out. We go out and Deb was a bit of liked her beer.
Yeah.
Mary liked her beer and I liked her beer, and so we'd do afternoon happy hours and stuff.
Yeah.
And it just progressed until we actually went out on a date. And
can you remember your first date?
I do. It was a place called Players, kind of a nightclub type thing.
Yeah.
First time dancing with Deb, and
cool.
It was the first time where it was all the attention was on her rather than it just being in a group setting.
Yeah. I
had the eyes for her. She was the only one in the picture. Everything else was blotted out.
Sweet.
And that would have been 86 probably.
When did you get married?
And then next year in 87 we actually got married.
And
we didn't have a church wedding or anything. We just did just the peace stuff,
And how old were Tanya and Tasha?
Well, that would have been 87. So they were 6 and 7, I'd say.
6 and 7. So
but I'd known them for a couple of years now at this point.
So when did you know Tanya and Tasha? When did you did you know them when they were like 4 and 5 or?
Yeah, probably 5 and 6, I'd say.
So now you'd been so just just to paint a picture, you were this free-spirited biker dude fucking on the way to California, and now you're after meeting the love of your life. This is how weird life is. This is how fucking beautiful life is.
Yeah.
You're after meeting the love of your life. And how old are you when you're married?
Let's see, it would have been 20 and 82. And this would have been 86, so 24 maybe.
So you're 24, married, and now you've got 2 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a massive change. But was it like all I can remember, I remember you coming home with Debbie. I think was it
88 was when I brought her back.
When
yeah.
you came back, and I just remember, like, because my memories of you, right, are as a kid before you left. I remember you, we were moving to Mallow from Middleton, and I remember I was in a car with you, and you were telling me that you were moving to America. And then my next memory of you is you coming back with Debbie, and you were like film stars. You were like you denim jackets and just like you big long flowing kind of black curly hair, and Debbie was like a model, and you know I was just like, wow, who's this guy? Like, do you know
We just found another way to be posers. That's all.
You know, but like coming back to Newmarket, you looked the shit. Like, do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I just but you're 24, and you've got 2 small kids, and you're married, and what happens next? It's a big change, like.
It is. Well, the construction thing then kind of fell apart, and they moved back up. Then he moved the whole operation up to Illinois, where he was from originally. And so I did take a look at the life and look around and see, okay, what's the next move? So I signed back up to school, and I went to a college called O'Brien Institute. Not O'Brien. Bryan Institute. And it was a crash course for 6 months or something, or 4 or 5 months, on computer programming.
Wow.
And we both went to it at the same time. We got grants and stuff and from the government, and
So you went back to college, kind of. So like that's
back
unreal, man.
just for a quick stop. It was only a 6-month type course, but what it did was they kind of guaranteed placement after it into, something in that area, in that field.
Mm.
And I got a job at Texas Instruments out of it. That's where I ended up at Texas Instruments.
I remember that.
And I spent about, I'd say, 4 or 5 years there. Only 2 of those were actually physically with TI. The other 3 would have been, there was outsourcing going on back then. It was a lot of, there were other companies coming in to run departments, and they called it outsourcing, but I became part of the outsourcing company that came in and took it and did that kind of business for the next 12 or 15 years.
So was it kind of into corporate kind of life then for a while?
Oh yeah, full corporate.
Yeah. And
suit and tie, and
I remember you to suit and tie and
desk and briefcase and the whole lot. I mean, it was
and you were like were you hiring people then for a while?
Yes,
so it's kind of gone full circle. Where
it's
you were
kind of like what Leona was doing.
Yeah,
it's the same guy. It was job placement, but it was all IT based.
Yeah, and
we worked with big companies, AT&T and Sprint and Nortel
and you were rising up through the ranks of that fairly. Every time we'd hear back anyway, we'd be like, Mike's after getting a raise, or Mike's after getting a promotion. Or, But
no, it was good at it, and it was a good run.
Yeah. And then life is going on. Ashlyn and
Mike are born.
Are born. And now you've got 4 kids.
Right.
4 small kids. And you decide that to leave the corporate world.
I did. I got fed up. Like I said, there was a lot of buyouts and things going on. You were just staying one step ahead of the curve. I always felt like I was one step away from living under a bridge. You always felt like you were.
Right.
It never felt secure.
Yeah. That's not easy. Like, that's stressful.
Yeah, and I eventually got fed up with it, and I had a neighbour, Ken, who was doing the window cleaning business.
I remember Kenny, the golden tea.
And Kenny I used to go out and do a bit of work with Kenny on my off days or weekends or something.
Cleaning windows?
Just need to make a bit extra cash for drinking money, probably.
Yeah.
And anyway, Kenny, he was constantly turning away customers. He had a huge overflow. He couldn't keep up with it himself.
Yeah.
So I had the brainwave that, shit, if I get my pickup truck, throw a couple of ladders on the back, I can work off of his overflow and start my own operation.
Yeah.
And that was about in 2002 when I made that decision. And I sold everything and bought the truck and geared up with all the equipment.
Another adventure.
Took off on my own,
Complete, like
cleaning windows.
cleaning windows. And your company was Windows and More.
Windows and more.
You had some
There-
exciting, dynamic staff work with you down through the years.
Well, I mean, mostly it was my son, Mike,
But you did
and
have
Kevin, and
you had one,
and some of their friends, you know.
you had one very good-looking Irish fella working for you at one stage.
Oh, I had a guy, Cornelius was his name. He went into the comedy business, I hear.
Yeah. He was a dynamic. He started his own window cleaning company. And
He
everything.
did, but he had a weird uniform. He came over in his GA shorts, which were the gayest things you ever saw in your life. Whoops. Sorry.
This is a woke podcast now. You can't be using derogatory slang.
Okay, well, I didn't say the bad one.
All right, okay. I'll leave you off. Because of your generational
But
racism.
Connie was a sight to behold in his GA shorts, climbing up a 24-foot ladder. And not a bother on him.
Not a bother. I had the O'Neills. I was wearing the O'Neills before anyone was wearing the O'Neills first as a style thing. But you were like, Christ almighty, Connie, they're like gym shorts. Get them off. You were giving me shit for wearing them.
Yeah, because his boxers were coming down to his knees and his shorts were up to his nuts, sir.
But yeah, besides the fashion faux pas, like, I mean, like, you could rely on me when it came to, we'll say, like, you know, if there was a painting job in a car lot or anything like that needed to be done, I was the man to, you know, like,
Yeah,
technically.
and you can take this with a grain of salt, but you could let him off on his own. And I don't think you could expect a Mona Lisa when you got back. It'd probably be more like a scribble of Dali or who's
a Dali, Salvador Dali.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I have a Salvador Dali painting behind you there. Impressions d'Africa. I'll show it you there in a minute. Yeah, so you did, but like, that was the thing. You started your own company, Windows and More.
I branched out with the more, then started to become a lot
You were doing school,
of
yeah.
different.
Remember schools? Remember we were like doing schools.
Yeah, I had 4 different schools that it was doing all their maintenance and stuff.
I used to come along and not know, like I honestly was like, why did you even pay me?
I tried to get Connie to drive a nail into a piece of wood once, and he actually bent the hammer. How he did that, I have no idea.
Yeah, I just not built to do that kind of work, but I fucking went there anyway, and we did a bit of work in between a lot of drinking. Now we'll have to admit that
We did.
there was a lot of drinking and a little bit of smoking going on, but that's not what we're here to talk about. You start, like, what I love about that is it's the constant theme. Is there's always something exciting happening. There's always, you know. I know you were working in corporate for a couple of years, and you had to do that because your family are young as well at that stage.
Yeah.
But like when you started Windows, when doing the Windows, you know, Tanya and Tasha were like probably college at that stage, or nearly moved. They were definitely moved out anyway, or close to moving out. Like.
Close to it, yeah.
And the other 2 Lachicos were well into school, you know, and you were taking a calculated risk. I can do this. But to reclaim your freedom as well to a certain degree, because weren't you getting like problems with your back and stuff when you were working in corporate?
I had a couple of back surgeries that I did in the 90s.
Yeah.
That kind of shut me down for a while, but a lot of it had to do with just not being active enough.
Yeah.
And with the window cleaning, sorted that out.
Yeah.
And I did that right up till 2018.
2018. Yeah. And I want to get onto that there now. So yeah. What happened in 2018?
Well, it was actually 2018. Niall died in 2016. I came back for his funeral, and then I came back 2 years later for his anniversary, an anniversary get-together.
Yeah.
And that was in December of 18. And then I went back to Texas, and 2 weeks later, I had the stroke.
Yeah.
And it was just out, as they happen always, it's out of the blue. Nothing expected. Just woke up one morning and couldn't put my feet under me.
Yeah.
Actually tried to get out of bed, but just fell completely to my knees and bounced the head off the ground and stuff,
Yeah.
Knew there was something wrong and told them to call the emergency services, and I carted off to a hospital. Spent about 4 weeks in ICU and diagnosed with brain clots that caused it. But it pretty much paralysed me on the left-hand side. So I'm only half a man now.
You're not. You're a full man. You're a full man. Look at you. You're sitting in the John Hume War Room.
Yeah.
Well, fucking 2,500 miles away from where that happened.
And if you told me I'd be here last year at this time, I wouldn't have believed you.
But this is what I'm saying to you. This is like, if you're looking at your life, there's nothing stopping you. Nothing's going to stop you. Do you know?
Yeah.
And like, you nearly died. Like,
yeah, I probably did for a millisecond or a second or two, but I came back and came out of it.
And how have you grappled with the lack of physical freedom?
I'd say not very well at times. I mean, it is a struggle. You have to kind of plan everything.
Yeah.
And you have to look at the obstacles, not just physical obstacles, the mental obstacles.
Yeah.
And try and work them out in your head before you actually attack them, and see if it's even a possibility. Because some things are not a possibility. Because I had to come to terms with certain things that are never going to happen again.
Yeah.
Like I was an avid golfer. We were talking about PGA earlier, and I realized at one point I have played my last round of golf.
Yeah.
That's something that'll never happen again. There's too much dexterity involved, and it just coordination. I don't have it anymore, so
yeah,
that's gone by the wayside. So you come to terms with certain things like that, which can be a mental drain, and it can drag you down a little bit. But
you're one of the most resilient and positive people that I've ever met in my life, and especially positive. Like I mean, I have countless stories on your natural optimism, and for me, like I fatten on negativity. I don't know why. I don't like that. I don't like that about myself. I try to change that. I actively try and change it. But I feel your natural disposition, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is positive and upbeat. And has that ever waned?
I think the stroke has taken some of that away. Because I mean, just going anywhere now, even going out to a restaurant or something, I automatically go to the issues that are at hand, and I stress about those a little bit, and I'd have, like, they would have to do recon on a step or how to get into some place, or ask if they have the proper bathroom set up in there, or toilet set up or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I'm obsessed with it. And I mean, then when I leave the house, the only thing on my mind is, okay, when am I coming to be back in my own comfort zone again,
Yeah.
Because I have a comfort zone built in my own house now. I've got my own setup, and everything is there to kind of meet my needs.
Yeah. Yeah. So every time you leave the mothership, it's
being out of the comfort zone is a huge stress.
Yeah.
And it's a drag on not just me, but on Debbie as well, I'd say.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
Debbie she's a rock for me now, in all fairness.
Man.
She looks after me like a freaking force field around the Spaceship Enterprise. She's always looking out what can get in his way or what.
Yeah.
She's dynamite.
Yeah. You're so lucky, man. You're so lucky.
And they all are. The kids are great too. They all chip in and try to make it as comfortable as possible, no matter what situation I'm in.
Yeah. And that's one thing I want to talk about. You taught me an awful lot about fatherhood. I remember when I was working with you over in Texas. Dylan was here. Dylan was 12, and we'd email back and forth to each other. That's how we were communicating. And I was just watching the way, like, Dylan didn't live with me. He lived with his mum, and his mum was absolutely fucking amazing. Brilliant mother, fantastic mother, I have to say that, and would have at that stage gave him much better care than I would have been able to give him. But I was like just a dad that took him to the matches and you know, I could have been better. Definitely could have been better. But watching you with Ashlyn, I remember Ashlyn. She was still going to school. Mike was finished school the second time I was over, and you'd get up in the morning and you'd ask Ashlyn what she wanted for breakfast, and she'd be like, she was like your little princess. She was like, I want pancakes and I want sprinkles and I want this, and you'd go away and you would make her exactly what she wanted, and it would bring such joy for you. And she'd be critiquing it and giving it marks out of 10.
Yes.
And you'd make her lunch for school, and then you'd be texting her, how was your lunch? And she'd be like, a little less fucking peanut butter next time, Dad, or something like that. And you'd get so much joy out of that. And I was fascinated by it at the time. I was like, because I was living a shallow existence of fucking alcohol and drugs and fucking,
Right.
you know, at that peak. And I was going through a really depressed period in my life. And it shone a light into me to want to be, you know, if I ever got the chance again to be just a better dad, like, you know. But like all that work, all that beautiful stuff that you put into your children, and all the love that you had in your life with your wife and even our family and stuff like that, our extended family, I mean, it's all coming back in the care that you're receiving. And it's like, it's not even care, it's just like, we just love you so much, like. And like, I just think Debbie is like my like, she's reminds me of Noelle. She's just I think there's a lot to be grateful for in a horrible situation, like,
Yeah,
you know. And I think you understand that as well, or you know that yourself.
I do and appreciate it, because I mean I can go off down a dark path. I mean you can get quite morbid and dark at times, especially in the early years, first couple of years. You know, you actually, I mean, not to turn this into a therapy session, but you'd go down, or they're better off without you, or they, you know, this kind of dark kind of thoughts, but it never manifested into anything that dragged me down too far, because I'd snap out of it pretty quick, because I didn't want to be that type of person anyway.
And like, so that would have been like when we had all that you know, and you found that and you had the struggles of it. Like you said there earlier on, you never in a million years would have thought you were going to be here.
No. And yesterday I went to visit the grave of my brother Niall.
Yeah.
And the first time I'd been back there since they put a headstone in, and they actually moved some of the ashes back there. And I was sitting in front of there. I was like, it wasn't a dark, it was a somber thought, but it was thinking that, you know what, I actually thought my name would be on that headstone before I'd be sitting here looking at his name on it.
Yeah.
You know, because it came very close to actually being up there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Life is funny, man, the way it works, isn't it? Like you just don't fucking know. And it's just wonderful to have you here, man. I'm just so fucking delighted to have you here. What brings joy into your life now? What do you get what do you do now, or what do you love now in the way your life is now?
Well, you know what, I would have to go back to kids again and grandkids now. I got 4 grandkids now at this stage in my life, so they're absolutely. Shout out to little Kevin, Marilyn, and Aidan and Isabel, who are absolutely doing a wonderful job, and Ashlyn doing a wonderful job with her kids, and Tasha with her kids.
Yeah. Family.
And it is, that's exactly what it boils down to. It's family, and it's having Deb there. I mean, when Deb goes off to work and I spend the day at home, I mean, it's a sad moment when I know she's leaving, until I have a good day and off. Love you and see you later.
Yeah.
And then can't wait till the minute that door opens and
When she
she's
comes
back
home.
in the evening.
Yeah.
Because she has now, like Niall used to be my security blanket as a teenager.
Yeah.
Debbie is the security blanket now. When she's not there, I miss her terribly, until the minute she gets back and can be there with me again. And it's not for her to be there so she can do stuff for me. It's just to be there, you know, company-wise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I've nothing to complain about, for Christ's sakes. I'm still above ground. I'm on the surface, kicking away.
Yeah.
Another joy, then I get joy out of sports. Lots of sports. I'm a huge sports nut.
Man United fan.
Man United fan, as far as the soccer is concerned. And then Cowboys, everything to do with Dallas teams. We have 4 national teams there, Cowboys, Football, of course, the Mavericks, the basketball team.
Dirk.
Dirk, who got us the title in '99.
Yeah.
I got the Stars with the
You,
ice
you
hockey.
know Dirk Nowitzki, Dan, do you? Do you know the basketball player? Is it Nowitzki, is it?
Nowitzki, yeah.
Nowitzki.
Nowitzki.
Is he German?
He is German. Wolfsburg.
Yeah. Yeah. Famous. I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly now, obviously. So sports, your family. I just think it's wonderful that we're like this weekend now. We've got Nana's 90th, and we're all going to be there, Mike. Do you know?
Yeah.
We're all going to be there, and we're going to miss Niall. You know, definitely going to miss Niall. He'll be missed out of it. And my son won't be there. Dylan won't be there as well. He's got.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he can't make it. That's my fault. 100% my fault.
Oh.
I told him too late, and he had a holiday booked with Shauna, his girlfriend, so they'll be missing as well. But they'll be the exceptions. I'll have to get that there in a minute. Yeah, I think we might wrap it up, Mike.
Okay.
We might wrap it up. It's been amazing. I'm going to just pause this here now a second. Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to say that conversations with Cornelius has been a highlight for me through the last couple of years. You know, with the stroke, because I spend a lot of time by myself during the day, and the new episodes, I can't wait. I'm on bated breath, anticipating that I can check my email. And I've got a notification that Cornelius has a new podcast up, and now the Three by the League again has made it doubly fun, and then the Square Ball. Brilliant shows.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. I'd often ring you. When I ring you, I'm usually half jarred. It's because that's the time that's
You've usually finished a gig or something. And
I'll go for a couple of pints and I'll be home here and I'll still be wired and I might give you a call and we'll have an old chat. We might talk about a match but invariably we'll always have an old chat. You'll say, "Oh, I love that episode," and you'll go in or you'll talk about it and.
I've listened to every single one of them. All 117 now, is it, or 116?
This is we're at 116 now at the moment. So by the time this comes out, this will come out in a few weeks' time. It'll be 120 or 121 or something like that. But you'll have a two-parter, Mike.
Yeah.
You know, and you're one of the first patrons as well. I want to say thank you for that as well for your support. That really means a lot.
Couldn't wait to sign up.
Yeah.
I was actually in a hotel room. The house was getting refurnished after some storm damage, and I had to spend 7 weeks in a hotel, and that's when I first started listening to you. I was back. That was over a year. And when did you start doing the podcast? A year ago, 2 years?
I started it in the middle of COVID in January. I think it was 21 January 21. Yeah. Yeah. And just to get through COVID because there was no gigs and stuff like that.
Right.
And I was fucking going out of my mind and. Just started. Sure, I'm only making it up as I go along.
But not to bring it back to Windows and more as well, but when the stroke hit me, I had to give up doing that, obviously.
Yeah.
But I still had customers calling like off the hook for the first 6 months. But COVID set in, it was right at COVID as well, and that put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted you coming to the houses anymore.
Yeah. 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 Jesus. Well, look, we're gonna have a good weekend, Mike.
Righto.
And I love you, man. And this
Love you right back, hon.
This has been just absolutely amazing, and to be continued. You know, all right.
Fair enough. Cheers.
Staying by the wall, lads.
Staying by the wall, my favourite saying of all time.
Staying by the wall.